Good morning, everybody. So I came, this morning. I had planned this already, but it's a lot more applicable. Like in my mind, it's really fresh on my mind because I was talking to somebody yesterday who I think that this really applies to. It just brought up, how many people are out there who are not thinking about this thing. So what I wanted to talk about today was what is the worst thing that can happen in your career? And I know that sounds kind of harsh. I know that it's not pleasant to think about, but that's exactly why it's important to think about. And we're going to dive into a little bit more detail on that when we get to the end. So let's just kind of talk through it, right? So a lot of people are like, hey, listen, if my boss came and cut my pay, that would be horrible, right? And yeah, that would suck. Like, don't get me wrong, but there are worse things that can happen. I mean, you're in that position, right? You can make extra money elsewhere. You can cut expenses. You can make adjustments. Now, some people, there's like, well, man, the worst thing that could happen is that I get fired, right? And that's true. That's also something that's on the cards. I found that, normally when that happens, people get thrown off the rails. Generally they build up some debt. It's very unpleasant. And normally somehow they get some other job, right? Sometimes it's as good as what they had before, sometimes it's not. Normally it's kind of in the same field, so it's still like a sucky job if they didn't like their job before. And mark my words, if you don't like your job, if you can't focus, then eventually you will get fired, unless you quit first, which is perhaps the third thing, is that people are like, well, what if I get so burned out that I just can't take it anymore and I just bail? And that's something that I've also seen. And I found that when that happens, people tend to have trouble getting back on their feet. Sometimes they'll go into the same thing as if they get fired. They'll go and they'll take on some debt and they'll do some of that kind of stuff. But eventually, they will generally go find another job unless they're so broken by the experience that they have this anxiety aversion and just can't go back. Right. And that can happen. And then people will get thrown off that track and then they'll end up, working in Home Depot or something as a checkout clerk because they just can't go back to anything remotely similar to where they were. And that can really throw people off, for a long time. But all of these are primarily financial outcomes, and they're all taking for given the stress involved in being in a job that you hate. So the worst thing that can really happen in your career is never figuring out a job that you love, is never figuring out a way to make money doing that. Because if you do that, then none of those other things can happen, right? It's not possible for them to happen. More importantly, right, if you stay in a job that you hate for 30 years, or if you stay job hopping from one job you hate to another job you hate to another job you hate, because generally people will move every couple years if they're not happy. If you stay in that pattern or you stay in a sucky job for another 20, 30, 40 years, right, that can literally kill you, right? You can literally take 20, 30 years off your life, right? That's why some people, start getting old and creaky at 40, and other people are going strong at 80, right? There's like a 40-year difference there. I mean, this is why people end up, alcoholism, drug addiction, all kinds of other coping mechanisms. Sometimes people just box up into their heads and they just become afraid of the world, right? And that brokenness, that is the worst thing that can happen. Now, why am I telling you this? Why am I going into something so painful? Well, the reason is that most of us, we bullshit ourselves on a daily basis. Most people do. I certainly try not to, but we're all human. So most people bullshit themselves on a daily basis, and they don't look at this. They don't realize that the path they're on is going to lead to exactly that kind of hell that I just described. Because if they were really acutely aware of that, they would not be able to get through the day. They wouldn't be able to function. So they tell themselves that it's not that bad. They distract themselves. They get lost in whatever, right? To ignore the fact that they're on a path that's going to lead to a lifetime of misery, right? But if you're doing that, then you're never going to do anything to fix it. So the way that you avoid that tragic outcome, the way that you avoid the worst thing that can happen, is you start by getting really, really, really honest with yourself, right? Because when I did that, that's what led me to be in this, to start this company and do what I'm doing today, is I got really, really, really honest with myself. And when you do that, you only have two options. You either give up and break, or you fix the problem, right? And most of the time, if you're really, really, really honest with yourself, you're going to fix the problem. So that's what's standing in the way. That's the worst thing that can happen. And people, they want to pretend like it's not there. They want to pretend like, it's not something that they want to look at, right? Intellectually they know it's there, but as long as they can distract themselves, not pay attention to it, they don't have to look at it, then okay, But if you really take a hard look and you're really honest, hey, listen, this is the path that I'm on, then you're going to find that there's a tremendous impetus to do something about it, right? And that's where I've been there. I've seen other people there. I'm an expert at helping people who are there. And so if that's where you are, if you're at the point where you're deciding to get really, really, really honest with yourself, which you should, right? And you go, oh shit, I need to figure something out. Then give me a call and I will help you through that, right? That is a big reason why this group exists. Here, I'll show you. You guys can go to this link, oculusinstitute.com/scheduling, and I'm more than happy to talk you through all of that kind of stuff. But for now, guys, go be honest with yourself, think about it. I know that this is, a hard topic to talk about, but it's really, really, really important. So I wish you guys the best, and I will be here to support you. So good morning, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.